Hello, welcome to episode 54 of the Craft House Magic Podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and it's the 10th of January, so Happy New Year everybody. It's a little while since I've done a full-length podcast because I've been busy doing little Vlogmas videos, which I hope you all enjoyed. I tried to stick to just sort of crafts and Christmassy themes, with the odd bit of sightseeing in there, and of course the odd yarn shop as well. And fabric shop, of course. I've got quite a few finished objects to show you because it's been a while since I last actually had a full podcast, like I said. I will be showing all the projects that I did show here and there in Vlogmas, just to do like a summary in case you didn't watch any of the Vlogmas videos. So I've got some finished objects, some works in progress, and I'm going to talk about my Make 9 focus, what my targets were for last year and my new targets for this year in terms of knitting. I am going to talk about sewing, but I'm going to leave that till the next episode in terms of Make 9, but I have got a little bit of sewing for this episode, and I think Barbara will make an appearance. I've got some bobbin lace, blast from the past and gadget as normal, and I've got a little bit of confessions, but they're all Christmas gifts, so they're guilt-free. And then I've got a bit of information on my shop update, which will be next week, 18th of January at 10 o'clock in the morning, GMT. I was going to say British summertime, but I'm a little bit out there. So let's start off with a little bit of admin. So you can find me on Instagram, Ravelry as Craft House Magic, and I've got my own website, crafthhousemagic.co.uk, where I sell my handmade things that are sort of knitting related, knitting accessories, bags and yarn, etc. I'm losing my voice already. This isn't a good start. I wanted to mention that we've got 2 Knitalongs going on at the moment. We've got the Advent Mini Knitalong, which is all about knitting up all the little minis that we had in Advent. But to be honest, if you had other minis as well, whatever you're knitting with your minis, come and join us in the Knitalong. And the prize for that is going to be a lovely skein of yarn from down Sheepy Lane, and it's in the Be Our Guest colourway on Deb's Sturdy Sock. Isn't that lovely? Really beautiful. So that's the prize for that, but I won't be drawing that till the end of January. Originally I thought I'd draw it in the middle of January, but I think just give everyone a little bit longer to get some of those scrappy projects finished up. But you don't actually have to have a finished object to enter for the prize, it's just for the discussion thread for that one. We've also got the Candy Cane Sock Knitalong, which is my sock pattern, which has the little candy canes all down the front there. So the Knitalong, again, I'm going to extend this till the end of January. Originally I said I'd do it till midway, but I think just to give people a little bit more time. And to win a prize for this, you need to actually finish your socks, and there'll be a finish object thread. Well, there is a finish object thread that you can pop your finished socks in. And we've already got a few finished objects already, so thanks for joining in so far. And the prize for that is going to be a lovely Giddy Yarns Gobstopper ball, and this is in the Storm's End colourway, and that's a gorgeous self-striping that Helen's dyed up. I love Gobstopper balls, aren't they lovely? I shall show you the one that I've actually knitted up that I bought at the same time as that one, so you can see how that's knitted up in a little bit. So I've decided, I'm sort of planning all my Knitalongs for the year, and the main ones are going to be an Edinburgh Yarn Festival Knitalong, where you can get involved in knitting garments, socks, shawls, anything really that you'd like to wear at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, or that you can imagine you'd like to wear at Edinburgh Yarn Festival if you're not going. But as you can imagine, I'm going to Edinburgh Yarn Festival this year, so I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody there because it was so much fun last year. So come over to the Ravelry group and I'll be opening a thread on sharing what you're knitting for Edinburgh Yarn Festival. So the next knit along I'm going to do is going to be a shawl along, and that'll run from March till May. And then after that I think I need another summer sock along like we did a couple of years ago, and that'll run from June to August. And then I think that we need another Christmas craft along, getting everything all prepared to be done before Christmas so that we're way ahead of ourselves and we can put our feet up in December. So that'll be the Christmas craft along, making gifts or anything Christmassy related, not just knitting, and that'll run from September to December. So that's what I'm planning so far. And I'm also thinking about doing a little mini knit along for the Here We Gnome Again pattern, which I shall show you how I've got started in a minute when I'm going to show you my works in progress. So that's a lot of talking about Knitalongs, but let's get into the finished objects that I've done. So I shall talk about some of the socks that I've finished in the, I think I did these in December. Yeah, these are the ones I finished in December. So these are A Little Bit of Hocus Pocus, and the pattern is by This Handmade Life, and it's got a really beautiful cable detail on either side of the sock. Isn't that lovely? I'm really pleased with these. And then they're just plain on the other side. I haven't blocked these yet, so you can see a little bit of a line where I've been doing magic loop. So I knitted these on 2.75mm needles, magic loop, and I followed the pattern. And I don't know whether the Eye of Partridge heel was in the actual written pattern, I can't remember. But I just decided to do it anyway, because it gives a nice texture. And I'm absolutely in love with this cable. So I'm going to save these, I think, till next autumn, because they're gorgeous autumnal colours, if I do say so myself, because I dyed it. So this is my pumpkin patch colourway, and it's a sort of orangey, yellowy, brown main colourway, and then it came with a little sort of muted green colour. There we go. So that's that pair finished. I'll try not to spend too much time talking about each of these finished objects, because there's quite a few. So these are my lovely Cha-Cha chevron socks, and the pattern's by the lovely Sandra Paul. And I love, love, love this pattern. Really liked the way these, quite easy to follow, pearl details around the sock, and that goes all the way down the foot. And the yarn is in It's a Disaster Darling by Little French Meadow, and I really think that these are going to be some of my favourite socks. So I've got the pair all finished, ready to wear. So finished object number 3, I haven't got any more, and it's hat I knitted for my dad, and it's the Half Theory hat by Woolly Wormhead, and I can see if I can pop a little video of my dad wearing it, and it's the little clip that I put up on my Christmas Day version of my Vlogmas. And the yarn is in my own hand dyed yarn, and it's in one of my new colourways that was released as part of my 12 Days of Christmas. And this particular colourway is called Living on a Prayer, and it's based on the song by Bon Jovi. So there we are, that was all finished, and I obviously given it to my dad, so I can't show you properly. But luckily I took that little clip for my Vlogmas. So there we go. My last finished object is my Madewell cardigan, which I'm now wearing. So this is knitted out of my own hand dyed yarn in the You Spin Me Round colourway, and it's a sort of grey cream tonal with some purple speckles on there. I did do it slightly oversized, and I have worn it a couple of days, so it seems to be quite a nice shape. But what I think I might do is put on the inside of where the ribbing is, just sew some ribbon right the way on the inside all the way up on the side of this ribbon, just to give it a bit more stability, because I did do it quite a long cardigan, so I'm feeling that it is slightly stretching as I'm wearing it. So if I put a bit of ribbon, that'll keep it nice and sturdy and all together, rather than it stretching too much. Because I did it on quite a loose gauge, I think with it being superwash as well, it tends to drag down a little bit more and stretch the length. So I think if I put that little bit of ribbon all the way on the inside up here, that'll make sure that it doesn't stretch out too much. But there we go. I ought to show you the back as well. There we go. Once I've put the ribbon on the inside, I'll do a little bit of video outside so you can see the whole length of the garment a little bit better. So that has actually brings me to talking about my Make 9. So last year, my Make 9, for my knitting, in terms of my knitting, I'd got 9 things on there, and I'm going to show you some of the things that I'd finished over the year. So the Madewell cardigan was one of those things, and the other garment that I made was my pavement sweater, which is here. And this is I think it's a Joji Locatelli pattern. Same as the Madewell cardigan. So Joji Locatelli designed this, and this is quite oversized as well, my pavement sweater, and it's knitted out of fine fish yarns, and it's in the Maven colourway. I have actually remembered, I'm very proud of myself. So I've had it folded in a drawer, so there is a crease mark up the front since I last blocked it. But I'm really pleased with my pavement, and I'd actually definitely knit another one of these again. So I also have my Ashling shawl, and I can't remember right off the top of my head who the pattern is by. I will pop it on the screen for you, but that's another finished object that was out of my Make 9, and I knitted this out of drops, baby alpaca and silk, and it's 2 colours I've used. Is a sort of muted grey pink here and a sort of a muted turquoise colour, which I love, and those repeats at the bottom of the cables were well worth all the time that I put into it. So that's another one from my Make 9. I also finished, let's get the sock blocker so that I can show you these a bit better, because I haven't blocked them since I've worn them. So bear in mind that I have actually worn these already a few times. So these are my 'Twas the Night Before Christmas socks, and it's a pattern by Danny from Little Bobbins, and the yarn is by Hedgerow Yarns, and it's in the lichen colourway, and that is really lovely, aren't they? Pretty colours in there, and I thought that it was very suitable to be a sort of tree themed Christmassy sock. So I finished those as well. So that's 4 things off my list, and I also completed a pair of Dale socks, and that's by Homespun House, the pattern, and the yarns that I used were opal yarns that I had in my stash, but I've gifted those for a birthday present, so I'll pop a picture up there if I can find a picture of those. So that was 5 things off my Make 9. I also had the Bits and Bobs blanket by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears on my list, but I actually decided, I changed my mind on that, and I didn't actually start one of those. Even though lots of people had started them and they looked lovely, I got distracted with other blankets. And there was 3 things left on my Make 9 list that I didn't touch, but I still wanted to knit. So they went on my new Make 9 list for this year. So I've been very organised and printed out a photograph of what I'd like to do this year. So I've got 3 things that are on there before. There were these butterfly and cocoon little toys that Susan B. Anderson had designed. Those were on last year's Make 9. And I've also got 2 cardigans, the Antler cardigan and the Cherry Blossom cardigan that were on my Make 9 for last year. Those are on again. And I've actually cast on the Cherry Blossom, which I'll show you in a minute. But there are a few other things that I quite fancied knitting. So the Vertices Unite shawl by Stephen West, I've wanted to knit that for ages, so that's definitely going to be one of this year's targets. And Here We Gnome Again by Sarah Skera, I have actually cast that on as well, and I've had that on my list for ages as well, since I saw it on Ava from the Charmovitz video. And I saw these gorgeous little sleepy kittens by Susan B. Anderson as well, which are absolutely adorable. And then I decided to have 2 pairs of socks on this year's Make 9 target list. The Stormy Day socks by Thistle Glen Designs, and the French Meringue socks by Marianne Hakeman. Sorry, I'm terrible at pronouncing things, but there's some beautiful cable detail there. And then lastly, I've got the Mary Margaret's Tam by Mary Elizabeth, and I'd seen this on lovely Ali's podcast from Little Drops of Wonderful, and I bought the yarn ages ago and I still haven't cast it on, so that's on my Make 9. I do have a secondary list, which is here. I'll quickly tell you about it, but these are the ones that I think that I'll be able to definitely achieve this year. It really doesn't bother me if I don't. It's just getting myself organised and deciding what I want to do in the coming months, really, so that I don't forget to knit things that I really want to knit. So I'd really like to knit the Snow Melt shawl by Helen Stewart, because once I'd seen that on the mystery knit-along that people were doing, I've fallen in love with that. I just haven't decided what I'm going to knit it in. The Tainer by Boylan Knitworks. I've had my eye on that since my friend Jean had knitted one. I think that was absolutely gorgeous. Quite summery, so I'm going to leave it till later on in the year. I want to knit myself some ultralight ankle socks. These were designed by Lee from the Lou Lee podcast. And they're actually knitted in lace yarn, and I thought that they would be ideal because my feet get a little bit hot, especially in the summer months. I'm not sure whether I'd still be able to wear them in the summer, but more like springtime, a lighter sock, because I tend to wear my 4-ply socks just in the winter time really. And then there's this gorgeous Boho Bella jumper by Paula Wisnowska. Right, that's terrible. I'll write the actual the way you spell it in the notes in the down bar. And then lastly, the Breathing Space by Vera Malamaki. And I've had my eye on this pattern for ages. I saw Helen from Giddy Yarns wore one of these at the Nottingham Yarn Expo, and I think, right, I've definitely got to knit it now. It looks gorgeous on you, Helen. So they're my sort of targets for this year, and because I've got this sort of primary make 9 list, I think that this is a lot more achievable than what I'd put on my last year's list, because I'd got 4 garments last year, and I think because I like to do a lot of scrappy projects as well, I don't always have time to knit quite so many garments. But I think 2, as I did 2 from the last year's list, 2's going to be quite achievable. So there we go. So what have I got on my needles? So I'll start with my Cherry Blossom cardigan. So this, as I've just showed you on the Make 9 photograph, is the Cherry Blossom cardigan, and it's got some beautiful colourwork flowers on the yoke here. It is knitted top down, and it's actually 3 colourwork at the same time, which I've never tried before, so hopefully that'll be okay. And it's a steeked cardigan as well. So I'm looking forward to steeking my first cardigan. So there's nothing like a good challenge, is there? I have literally just started. I've done my gauge swatch, and then I've cast on I've only done a couple of rows. So it starts off with a provisional cast on, and I've got markers all around where the repeats of the colour work are going to be started, but I haven't actually started the colour work yet. But the colours I'm using, my main colour, so this is John Arbon Knit by Numbers, and this is a number 5, which is a dark grey. And with the dark grey, I'm going to be using 2 shades of pink, 177 and 179. But I can't tell you which way round it was, because I took the labels off and then got confused. But you know what, you get the drift. You get my drift. So there we go. It also requires a sort of green colour as well for the leaves, which is a sort of sewn on afterwards. But I haven't got that colour yet. I might dye some up of my own yarn to do that. So it's 100% a merino yarn. I don't remember, it doesn't say that it's superwash on the label, so I assume it's not a superwash yarn. Does anybody know whether John Arbon Knit by Numbers is superwash or not? I'd love to know. I did remember at the time when I bought it, I knew, but I've completely forgotten. And I bought it in the Fibre East in 2017. So that's how long I've had that yarn and how long I wanted to knit that cardigan. Very naughty. So secondly, off my Make 9 is the Here We Gnome Again pattern. I'll quickly just show you that photograph. So this is the Here We Gnome Again pattern by Sarah Skira. And I'm doing a red body with, I'm thinking a pale grey or a cream sort of beardy bit. So this is the main colour, the red I'm using, and I've just knitted the cuff of the hat so far. And I'm thinking either one of these 2 colours, whether to have him grey or sort of this pale creamy colour, I don't know. What do you reckon? So I'm thinking about doing a knit along for this as well, over in the Ravelry group, so I'll leave a link down below to that as well. So that's my second thing I've already started on my Make 9. I'm very proud of myself. I have had these mittens on my needles for ages. So this is the Way Through the Woods pattern, and it is by Erica Mount, and since I last showed it to you, I think I've done about that much. So in the last week, I've done that much. So I'm knitting these on Addi Trio, or they're called Addi Flexi Flips, I think, in the US, where there's three short needles with a bendy bit in the middle, and these are 2.5mm needles. Normally for colour work I'd go up a needle size, really, just because I'm quite a tight knitter already, but I really wanted to try these needles on the colour work. And I think because they are quite a small needle, I'm having trouble keeping my colour work as neat as I normally do. But there we go. So this is the inside of the mitten, where there's trees, and on the outside there's a reindeer, and then there's a little fox there, and there's some other pictures and a little house at the top. There isn't actually a photograph on the pattern because it was a mystery knit along at the time, but I'm knitting them out of blacker yarns. And let me just see if I can find the label. So these are blacker yarns in the Jacob 4-ply, and it's in the dark blue clay and the pale green clay colours, which I think go nicely together. So I started these, I think, in January last year, and then I think I sort of lost interest, and then when it gets really warm, for some reason I don't feel like doing colour work. I don't know if anybody else feels the same. So that's my mittens that I've actually picked up again. I want to get those finished so that I can wear them before the end of the winter. I have a pair of sort of almost finished socks. So these are my socks that I've knitted from my Giddy Yarns Gobstopper ball, which is in Grandma's Christmas tree, I think it is, yeah. And I basically knitted these without the heel so I could do a true afterthought heel. And it's come up beautiful with those stripes. Helen's done a lovely job dyeing those stripes up there. And this is Helen's little logo, Giddy Yarns. I think somebody was asking me where you could get this from, and I left a link to Helen's website, Giddy Yarns. But I don't think she had it listed on her website anymore, but I don't know if perhaps if you contact Helen, whether she'll do you a custom order. You'll have to see. But if you go to her website, I'm sure you'll be able to find her contact details. So there we go. I am going to do afterthought heels, and I've decided that I'm going to do red. I so could have finished these off over Christmas, but I just could not decide what contrast colour I was going to do. And only in the last few days have I decided to do red, so I think that that'll go nicely and make them look a little bit extra Christmassy. So there we go, nearly finished that project. And last of all, I started, since the last podcast, my Northeasterly blanket. This is going to be a bit of a pain to show you. I've got it all rolled up here just to keep it nice and neat. So the Northeasterly pattern is by Skinanigans, and it's Melissa Alexander Loomis, her full name is. So I knitted a big long strip to start with, the length I wanted it to be. So this is supposed to be a blanket, but I'm going to do a shawl so I can wear it, because I really like the feeling of the Cozy Memories blanket as I'm knitting it. I feel that this is a very similar thing, but I felt that it was more, it could be converted quite easily into a shawl. So I knitted the first strip in the hope that I could work out how long I wanted it. Let's see if I can show you how this is going to look. I'm going to poke myself in the neck with the needle, but never mind. But you get the idea of how long I sort of wanted it to be. And I've started on a second row, and I'm thinking that I'll maybe do 3 or 4 rows of the Northeasterly pattern to then finish off as a scarf. And then I'm going to do I-cord edging around the edge just to finish that off nicely. Let's try not to stab myself with the needles. There we go. So, Skinanigans has got several tutorials on how to knit the blanket. I shall leave links in the down bar down below. They are very, very useful. especially the way it shows you how to join as you go. So the whole concept of this sort of blanket, or I'm knitting it as a shawl, is that you don't have to sew ends in at the end. You sort of sew them in as you go. But again, Melissa's got tutorials on her YouTube channel to show you how to do that. And also when you're joining your second row or whatever row, you join as you go, so you don't have to sew in things afterwards either. So it's a great way to use up scraps. Got threads hanging everywhere. And what I am trying to do is on each row I'm trying to do sort of a blending effect where you have the darker colours going into lighter colours with this blue, and then the blue to the yellow to the sort of corally pinks, etc. And you can see how the colours fade into a purple and then the blue again. So that I've tried to think the colour scheme out a little bit rather than just doing all my mini skeins. So these mini skeins were kindly gifted to me by my lovely friends Jean, Donna and Sharon that I had done some advent swaps with. I shall definitely say doing little swaps with people for Advent is such a good idea, because I think the cost of Advent calendars can be quite expensive when you buy them from indie dyers. And being able to swap little tiny scraps of yarn with your friends is just so lovely, because they've actually knitted with it before and it's like a memory of them as well. And it's so much fun swapping them. And I got 3, so you can imagine how expensive that would have been if I hadn't swapped them myself. But there we go. So that's my Northeasterly blanket, and like I said, I will leave links below to all the tutorials that Melissa's put up on her YouTube channel, which I found very useful. That's all my works in progress. There is quite a lot there, and I've still got quite a lot to talk about, so hopefully this won't be a ridiculously long podcast. But we've got a little bit of a sewing section now. Barbara, are you going to come and show us what you've got on? Welcome back, Barbara. So Barbara is stylishly modelling my Concord t-shirt, and Concord t-shirt is a pattern that's designed by Cashmerette Patterns, and they're a brilliant pattern company because they do different cup sizes and you're able to pick the size that's most appropriate for you. And I find that this pattern, once I'd adjusted it a little bit, because I needed to use a slightly smaller size on the shoulders to the body, I find that it fits really, really nicely. I really like the optional detail of these little tabs and buttons. I found these buttons in my stash and I thought that they went brilliantly. The fabric I'm using is, I think it's a double knit. Or a Ponte sort of weight fabric that I picked up from a shop called Fabrics Galore, and I actually bought this fabric, I'd say 2 years ago from the Knitting and Stitching show, and I've already made a cocoa out of it, a dress version, and I had some left, so I'll be able to, so I thought I'd be able to make a Concord instead. So the pattern, the Concord t-shirt, actually has got 3 options for the neck, and this is the highest neck. But I like this type of neck because it actually has a piece that you put in and it's more stable than just one that's turned over. So I know that the cocoa top pattern, the original pattern is just sort of turned over and top stitched, and I prefer this finish, especially as you can, if you can see here, I've used the stripes going in the other direction to give it a bit more detail. It's just plain on the back, but I really like the way that this sort of fits my shoulders, and I'll definitely be making more of these. There is different lengths as well. I ended up using the medium length. There is a shorter one and a longer one, I think, but the longer one was massively long on me. It's like a tunic version, way too long for me. I'm too short, wouldn't work at all, but it works out quite well because I don't end up using too much fabric. You can do short sleeve versions of this as well, which I'm hoping to get made up before the summer because I think that that'll be really nice as well. So there we are. Thank you very much, Barbara. So So Barbara was left at home alone over Christmas, and she obviously had a little bit of partying that she was involved in. Thanks, Barbara. See you later. Right, so now we're on to the bobbin lace section. I didn't actually do any bobbin lace over Christmas, really. I did show you a little bit of bobbin lace over the December period when I was doing Vlogmas, but I didn't do any over Christmas. But I thought I decided to finish this lavender cushion off that I started ages ago. So I'd completed the lace for the front and for the back absolutely ages ago. And I spent a little bit of time making this little turquoise cushion to go inside, and I've hand stitched the lace onto the front of that and the panel onto the back there as well, and I've threaded all the ends that were hanging from the lace panel into the fabric, or I've sewn them into the actual lace itself around the edge so that they're nice and secure so it won't come undone. I then decided it needed a little bit of a ribbon, so I've threaded a ribbon through the rose ground section in the centre there, and I thought it needs to be hung up, so I've put a little bit of ribbon on the back, and I'm actually going to hang that on the wall behind where I'm podcasting here, so that'll be lovely. And I've stuffed it with some lovely smelling lavender as well, so that'll keep my craft room smelling rather lovely and lavendery. Right, so that's my bobbin lace. Let's get swiftly onto the blast from the past section. So I've shown you on a previous occasion how I'd done some painting of pottery on a jug, but I have actually made a little bowl as well. So I didn't make the actual bowl itself, but I did some really simple painting and made it look like little buttons, and I thought that was really sweet. I used a sponge shape to make the rounded shape there, and then I hand painted the little holes in the middle and the sort of shadowy effect on the buttons, and then I did the same on the bottom and I wrote my name on. This is before I got married, so it says Jones on the back. So we'd gone to a pottery painting cafe that's in Poor England in the south of Norwich. I can't think of what the name of the actual cafe is called, but they do a lot of pottery painting and then they fire them afterwards so that then they're ready to use. And I basically just use this little bowl to put my rings and necklaces in for when I go to bed, and I pop that on the side there. There we are. So let's move on to gadget. We'll move through things very quickly because I'm worried about this podcast episode being really, really long. So the gadget for this time is a buttonhole cutter. So it allows you to cut, this is quite sharp so I'm not going to touch it, it cuts using this edge where you've sewn a buttonhole in a very nice, precise, clean motion. And I find, it comes with a little cover like this, I find that this gives a neater effect, at least on quilting cotton, than it does just using a seam ripper. So I got this from Clover, and it's a buttonhole cutter, and I will leave a link down below to that. So I definitely recommend these. I don't know if any other makes do them, but I'd only seen the Clover ones. And I'm not quite sure whether you can get ones that are different widths, but I found this 12mm one quite useful for all the buttonholes that I've cut with it so far. Right, so we have some confessions. So because I said that I was going to leave my sort of Make 9 dressmaking stuff till the next episode, I'm not going to show you some of the fabrics I got for Christmas, but I will show you some of the books and the yarns that I received. First of all, I shall show you a lovely gift that my friend Jo made for me, and it's a beautiful crocheted cowl, and isn't that lovely, that beautiful detail, and it's got some alpaca and silk in there. Unfortunately, I've put the label somewhere, Jo, and I can't find it anywhere, but I know that you emailed me and told me what the actual pattern was, so I will leave a link down below. So that goes over your head. And it's just a nice neck warmer there. So thank you ever so much, Jo. It's lovely to receive handmade gifts as well. So I'll keep that on for the rest of the podcast. my other friend Jo, it's a different Jo, had bought me some lovely yarns. Thank you so much, Jo. And she picked up some lovely stranded dye works, and it's in a BFL 9 nylon base, and it's called the colourway Equinox, and that's absolutely perfect. I absolutely love those colours. Thank you, Jo. Really lovely and squishy. And there was a couple of other minis in there as well. And this is by the Knitting Goddess, and I've never actually ended up buying the Knitting Goddess before, so it'll be really nice to try it. And this is in a BFL nylon base, and it's in the, I think it's just called Neon. Am I missing out? But isn't that pretty? Yellows and greens. And then this one is by Fantastic Adventure, and it's in the Futurette colourway. I think that's how you say it. But aren't those purples and blues perfect? Thank you, Jo. So that was one present. And then my lovely friend Liz, who is a non-knitter, I might add, picked out this gorgeous yarn from You and Ply. Oh, those purples aren't coming out as nicely as they are in real life. It's a lot more sort of bright purple in there as well. So You and Ply is a lovely yarn shop in Shrewsbury in the market, and I visited there over the Vlogmas. So this is a gorgeous 100% wool, and it's got some blue-faced Leicester and 35% blue-faced Leicester and 40% British wool. Isn't that lovely? And because it's non-superwash, oh, it smells adorable. I love it. So isn't that lovely? I did visit You and Ply and did buy some stuff over Vlogmas, so I've already showed you that, so I'm not going to show you it again. Of course, when I come to use it, I'll show you. I'm going to quickly run through some of the books that I got for Christmas, and I did buy Adam the Guy's Knit book from Sockmatician. So this is a beginner's sort of knitting book really, and I thought that it would give Adam some encouragement to knit some other things apart from his socks that he's started. So once he's made a bit more progress on his socks, I'll get him to show you them as well. But I quite enjoyed having a flick through this myself. There's some lovely patterns at the end there as well, but mainly it's sort of a book that talks about technique. But there's a couple of hats and some different patterns in there. So there's like some hats like this, but some simple ribbed socks as well, and all sorts. So that looks like quite a good one to get. So there was a couple of dressmaking books that I got for Christmas. I got Demystifying Bra Fitting. I haven't had a chance to have a proper look at these ones, but as I sort of work through them, I can tell you how well I got on with them. And Couture Sewing, because I wanted to know what the sort of proper way to do things are, because I'm probably just making it up as I go along really. I think a lot of the others are knitting books, but I got a couple of quilting ones. I got an Angela Walters one on free motion, which gives you some ideas on what patterns to do with free motion quilting on quilts. And a nice book on applique that my friend Jo recommended a little while ago. So I'll hopefully get some of those ideas made up. And I've got some other knitting books. Yeah, the rest of these are all knitting ones. So I've got a Coop Knits book, which has got lots of different sock patterns in, and they've got some really nice cables in these and some column work as well. I have to have a quick show of one of the socks there, but you can see 3 examples on the front which are really lovely. So hopefully get some of those cast on. I've wanted this book for a little while. It's different sort of knitting designs for the edge of your work, so that I can sort of create my own designs, which I think is rather lovely. And then the example on the front is some gorgeous cable work, but it just goes through some different sort of variations of patterns that you can use to make your work sort of individual. There we go. I am in love with this book. So I saw this lady, Lucy Haig, and she was interviewed on the Fruity Knitting podcast, and I had this on my Amazon wish list, and Adam bought it for me, and I keep flicking through and trying to decide which of the shawls to knit. So there is a little schematic diagram here which shows you that there's all these shawl patterns in this book and what shapes they are, which I find really useful. And I was trying to think of the most most wearable shawl shape that I'll do, and I've sort of got it cut down to 3 patterns. So I'm either going to knit the Caradale, which is that one, or this other. There's a triangular shawl, and this is called, right, I can't pronounce this, you're going to have to look at what it says. There we go. That one is triangular shawl with this gorgeous Celtic bit that runs around the outside. Or, which this is probably the one I'm drawn to most, is the Tailsin. This one, that's how you say it. And it's got basically these cables all over it. Trying to get a picture of it showing. Oh, that's probably the best picture of it all over. There. The only thing is, I'm not so keen on the ribbed detail around the edge. So I might have a go at that one and change it up a little bit. But isn't that Celtic cable work beautiful? Love. I've got a gorgeous Stitch Dictionary alternate, and this has got some really clever colour work patterns in there. I don't want to show you too much because the table to actually the directions are on the same page as the photograph of what it'll look like, but there's some full patterns like that really cute skull colourwork jumper as well at the back. So there's quite a few things in there I'd like to knit. And then lastly, I saw Zena from Little Yellow Uke. I'd picked this book up ages ago and it's been on my Amazon wishlist for forever, and she made this jumper and it's gorgeous, so I really wanted it for that jumper. But there's also a couple of cardigans in here that I really like. This is called Twinning Lilies. I thought that was really lovely. And what's this one as well? This is called Willow. That's how you pronounce it. What I will do is I'll leave the names of what the books are called and the authors in the down bar so that you can find them, rather than watching me flash up the books. I'm not going to show you any of the fabrics I got over Christmas, just because I think it'll go better with the next episode when I talk about my sort of make 9 in the dressmaking section of things. But of course I'll be knitting in that episode as well, just so that this episode isn't ridiculously long. I won a prize. The lovely Nicola from Bumble Stitches had done a draw for this gorgeous River Knits yarn. How beautiful is that? Absolutely gorgeous. It's a BFL base and it's called My Heart Bleeds Wine, and it's got some really nice purpley tones in there. I should bring it back there, that's more of an accurate colour. And Nicola suggested it would be lovely to use for like a brioche. I think that would be lovely too. It also came with a lovely pin. And I got some other pins for Christmas as well. So it came with this gorgeous pin here. I also got this lovely pin from my friend Jo with the yarn, which is from Knit Picks. And this lovely pin from my friend Liz. Isn't that a gorgeous tape measure? As you can see, it's getting a bit full. I've made a bit more room there because I might have ordered another pin off the internet. Oh dear. It's terrible, isn't it? Too much purchasing. Well, I've got to be good up until Edinburgh Yarn Festival anyway, so... So I was just going to quickly chat about my shop update, which will be the 18th of January at 10 o'clock next week. I've not got anything to actually show you right now, but I'm going to be releasing a cute little Valentine's kit, which will include a bag and some yarn, and also my 12 new colourways that were to do with the 12 Days of Christmas I already released. They're not Christmassy themed as such, but they're the ones that I designed for the 12 Days of Christmas kits that have already gone out, so everyone knows what the colours are now. So they'll be released on at least my merino nylon base. I'm going to try and get them out on some of my other bases as well, especially my new DK. So next week I'm going to try and start doing a new schedule for podcasting. I'm going to try and do shorter podcasts, but once a week instead of every 2 weeks. I'll just see how that goes. It might not work. But I am intending on releasing some tutorial videos as well. I want to go on to just doing some basic bobbin lace ones. Of course, I'm not going to go more complicated just because I don't feel as if I'm experienced enough to be able to teach you any more than the very basics really. But give you an idea of whereabouts to get the things that you need to start you off bobbin lace, the basic stitches, and what sort of books you can start off with. So there we go. I think that's all for today. Hopefully it isn't too ridiculously long. I've no idea how long I've been chatting for. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to me chatting on about what I've been up to, and I hope you have a lovely crafty January. Bye!